Welcome, I'm Julie Kay, helping you find your way through grief and loss and helping you to find your pathway to peace. Do you want to experience God's peace and you know that He lives in your heart, but you're just struggling with even knowing how to walk in peace? That's what this series is about. And I have shared several pathways to peace. The first one was acceptance. The next one after that was gratefulness and thankfulness, and how that's a pathway to peace. Now we're into forgiveness and how forgiveness is a pathway to peace. And last week was about God, who is perfect, forgiving us. And it's about us making sure we've really received His forgiveness, knowing that we are a sinner, we do wrong, and not because we're terrible people, but because we have a sinful nature and we need to be forgiven. And that's really the whole point of what Christ did on the cross. If you don't know that message, definitely tune in to other teachers, and I can give you a message even that I've shared on that, because it's really important you understand that. But watch that one from last week, because that's really crucial to know that God sets an example of what forgiveness is, and of forgiveness with Him being perfect. And here we are, imperfect sinners, supposed to forgive others, imperfect people. Who are we to be to put ourselves above God is kind of what last week was about. But I really want you to receive God's forgiveness and see His scriptures on that, because it's so beautiful, so powerful. Then I believe you'll be able to forgive others and yourself when you need to. So now I'm on to us forgiving others. And next week, in the next video, because I have quite a bit to share, is going to be on a lot of scriptures about and kind of the steps to what forgiveness is, what forgiveness does look like, what it is scripturally, and what I believe it is. But today is about what forgiveness is not, what it does not include, what it does not look like. As I share my own way of putting this, hopefully you'll understand what I'm saying. And I had someone in our group last night when I shared this say, wow, that really helped me a lot. And this woman knows, the scriptures probably as much as anybody else does. But I believe that the enemy comes and lies us about this. I believe we believe lies, and I believe we get lied to about this. And so sometimes we know in our gut that, that's not the way to forgive, or that's not what forgiveness is, but we haven't been taught this. So it can be very liberating to hear what it's not, okay? So my first point of what it's not is it's not an excuse for what was done wrong, unlawfully, or abused, or wrong action of, definite wrong action we're talking about, not just an interpretation of wrong. It's not excusing that. It's not saying it's okay. It's not attempting to defend that what was done to you, because sometimes we do. And you think about children, a lot of times don't always know what abuse really is, or that it's abuse. They're so used to it, whether it's sexual, verbal, or physical, so they have to come to grips with what's right or wrong, and that they didn't deserve that. So bottom line, to forgive somebody, to choose to forgive somebody of something they've done wrong to you, is not saying it's okay. It's not saying it's not a big deal. It's not saying it should be defended or justified or any of that. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's not to forgive somebody of something. Is not to excuse what they did. Okay? So my second point is it's not saying that you deserve it. Sometimes we can say, well, yeah, it's okay. I really asked for it. I deserved it. And so we are that kind of a person where we excuse that other person. Maybe the other person is very loving normally to us, or we idolize that person, or whatever. For whatever reasons, we go and justify it, which is kind of what I'm saying not to do in the first point. And then sometimes we blame ourselves and say, well, I really deserved it, or I did this or that. And when you choose to forgive somebody, it does not mean that you are supposed to take that blame, that you deserved it. So you may say, well, I don't want to forgive that person, because then it's like saying I'm guilty. You're right. That's not the perspective of forgiveness that you need to do. Okay? Forgiveness is a command from God, and it is a good thing, and we're going to talk way more about that on the next video. Forgiveness is what God tells us to do. It's also for you. It's for me. Forgiveness is for me. That is one way that people put it, and I think it's very accurate. Because God is a good God, and he doesn't just command us to do things because he just feels like it. He's a dictator. He's a control freak. That's not God's heart. He's a God of love. Think about a good parent. Why do we tell our children not to touch the stove? Because we don't want them to get burned. Why do we tell our teenager to watch out with going to parties when we know all kinds of bad things can happen at big parties with drinking and drugs there? Just an example that was coming to my mind. Because we care about them. We love them. We want to protect them. We want to keep them from harm that they don't know is going to be in that situation. Or don't text, and we tell our kids don't text, don't talk on the phone, don't whatever, you know what I mean? Don't drive really fast. Anything we would tell our children is usually from a heart to protect them and love them so that they can be blessed and not hurt. God all the more is that way because his love is perfect and ours isn't. So I just want to say that second point again is not saying that you deserve it. You deserved what was done wrong to you. When you forgive them, that means you're taking on that blame. No, it's not true. The third one that I have down is that it's not saying there shouldn't be a consequence to it. So a verse that came to me is in Galatians. It is Galatians 6, verse 7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. The one who sows to please his sinful nature from that nature will reap destruction. And the one who sows to please the Spirit from the Spirit will reap eternal life. So a lot of people know, a lot of people that aren't even believers know that, what goes around comes around, comes around goes around. Different ways of putting it, right? But it's saying that what you give out eventually is going to come back to you. That is one of God's law, just like the law of gravity. In my opinion, it's a soul law, law between people versus gravity. So it's definitely a law out there. So it's not saying that there's no consequence or should be no consequence for what was done wrong. Especially in the case of abuse of any type, or somebody doing something to you that literally was against the law. Something that somebody did to somebody that totally harmed their property or their body or their finances, or stealing, we can go on and on. It's never saying that there should be a consequence to that. So I'm going to share briefly, and this is something that I can share more freely now because of what just happened. So my daughter, if you don't know already, died in March of 2020, March 3rd, just before the lockdown, of a fentanyl and cocaine overdose. Her boyfriend bailed her out of jail. He put himself into jail, and that was the plan that she told me and his mom told me. He was planning to put himself into jail and then bail himself out with their income tax return money. And, would still have to suffer consequences, or, he was trying to get out of consequences. He ended up bailing her out, and that was the worst gut feeling I've ever had in my life when I found that out. 3 days later, she decided to party with him, even though she had said she would never hang out with him again, and she should never do that again. And that was after a long period of time of already knowing what an unhealthy, toxic relationship, and there was verbal abuse, possibly physical abuse, etc., going on in the relationship. So bottom line, in Tennessee is where this happened. The law in Tennessee is that if anybody buys fentanyl and they give it to somebody else and the person dies, they can be charged with second-degree murder, like right off the bat. Well, the detective did all his work, the detective on the case. Her boyfriend admitted it, that he did consciously buy fentanyl, because many people buy it and don't know that what they bought, like if they bought cocaine or heroin, they don't know fentanyl's in the mix. That's one of the things I'm educating people on, but I just want to get to the point where he knew exactly what he was buying, and he knew about Narcan. He didn't have that on him. He controlled the money. There's many factors here, but all it took in Tennessee was for him to buy that fentanyl and give it to her, and she died. That's what they mainly went on, and the fact that he admitted to that. So that was in 2020 that she died. 2021 August, they had a grand jury in Tennessee. I didn't know about this until 9 months later, but the grand jury agreed that he should be charged with second-degree murder. So warrant was put out for his arrest. Well, either they just didn't get to him. I don't know exactly when he skipped town, but he skipped town soon after that. Either knowingly what they did or not knowingly, I'm not totally sure. But he skipped town. He eventually changed his identity. He roamed around the country. I was somewhat aware of that. And what I'm getting at is, for my husband and I, especially as a father to a daughter, he could definitely have all the reasons to be angry and even hate her boyfriend and all kinds of stuff and not forgive. I mean, most people say, I don't blame you for not forgiving him, because we don't know exactly what happened, and we'll never know the full facts, but he definitely was the main contributor of her death. We believe that she only thought it was cocaine because she had done cocaine before that. And we had just talked to her about fentanyl, and she, again, people can lie, but she said she knew not to do that and acted like she would have nothing to do with it. So bottom line, they caught him. They found him in California just like 3 weeks ago, and now I've had literally since yesterday and today, I've had 3 different people reach out to me that don't even know me from Tennessee and make sure that I knew that he was behind bars now, and sent me their article and so forth. So now I can more openly talk about this, that justice is being done. We don't know how long he'll get, what have you yet, but he definitely is charged, and he's definitely getting consequence. So going back to forgiveness, if I don't forgive her boyfriend, I'm putting myself in a prison. I'm going to be filled with possibly hatred and bitterness and all kinds of terrible things, resentment in my heart if I don't forgive, and I know this. So I chose to forgive him as quickly as possible. My husband probably took a little longer, but he did, I would say, fairly quickly. He definitely did it in 2020. I don't know exactly when, but he did it fairly quickly because he understood that God's forgiven me, so I'm going to forgive. And we're going to talk more about that into next week. But bottom line, for us to forgive her boyfriend was in no way saying that we thought it was okay what he did. It was in no way saying that we thought that Heidi deserved it, or that we deserved it for some reason. It was in no way saying that he shouldn't get a consequence, because we are not because of a revengeful thing, but because we know how dangerous fentanyl is. We want our daughter's story to be a statement. He's dangerous to other people. He could be hurting other people. He may have already again. It's putting somebody behind bars that has proven to not get help, had gotten help a long time ago, but ended up an addict again, over and over again, is not seeking to get help, is not seeking to get clean. So, in our hearts, we believe that he needs to be behind bars for the world's safety, and really for his best interest, and for the statement of fentanyl being so dangerous and consequences happening. So we were all for the consequences, and yet we forgave him in our heart. So when he was caught, it wasn't like, oh, finally, and like this. It was a blessing because we had given it to God. We had prayed that he would get caught, but we understood it had to be God's timing. So without keeping this video any longer, this to me is a great example, our own example, because we could have hated him and been trying to find him and tracking him down and spent tons of time, tons of money, tons of energy, who knows what, to try to get him caught. And I thought about it several times, trust me. I talked to the detective. I told the reasons why I agreed that he needed to get charged. I wasn't necessarily trying for the second-degree murder. That was what their law said. But that he definitely needed consequences, and he was definitely guilty. But other than that, I left it in God's hands. And I didn't let it consume me. And I had a definite supernatural peace from God because of that. And I'm so glad that my husband and I did that, and God enabled us to forgive him. That we were not caught up with that. So now when it's happened, it's like, wow, God agreed. God, God is a person. He is a God of vengeance, and vengeance is his. God did agree for him to be caught, and the timing was right. And I can already see part of the reason why the timing. I'm not going to go into why. But I may not understand the timing, but God's timing is right. Okay? And God is always out to try to let people repent and get right with him. He's a very merciful, patient God, more than we are, and more than ones who are sinners. So he's, again, a great example to us. So that's all I'm going to share today. And I just want to encourage you to share this video out, because so many people need to hear this message about forgiveness and what it's not. And definitely next week, stay tuned for what it is, which I touched on a little bit in here. But I'm going to define that out, what forgiveness really is. And we're going to get in the Word, okay? This is a great series, and forgiveness, of receiving forgiveness from God, is a major way to find peace. Forgiving yourself, forgiving other people as quick as you can is one big time way to walk in peace. So I'm Julie Kay, helping you find your way towards your pathway to peace. God bless you. I'm signing off.